I used to believe that if I worked hard and stayed kind, things would eventually get better. That's what my mom always said, just keep going. But now I'm 23, barely holding my life together, and I'm starting to wonder if better is just a myth people tell themselves to make it through the week. I live in a studio that costs more than it's worth, $950 a month for a cracked window, bad plumbing, and walls so thin I can hear the neighbors arguing about who finished the cereal. I was supposed to have a roommate, but she bailed 2 months ago, left a note and a half-empty bottle of cheap vodka. I work the overnight shift at a diner on 82nd, mostly pouring coffee for night drivers and the occasional guy who wants to tell me his life story in exchange for a $2 tip. My boss, Keith, started cutting my hours last month after I told him I wouldn't pick up his nephew's weekend shifts. That kid shows up late every night and smells like weed, but he gets a free pass because he's family. To top it off, my older brother Marcus is crashing on my futon. He lost his construction job, says it wasn't his fault, but I've seen the empties in the trash, the way he mumbles in his sleep, the way he started snapping at me when I ask about job leads. My bike got stolen last week, cut lock and all, so now I walk home from work. 8 blocks through the cold, past shuttered shops and busted streetlights. Most nights I just want to scream, but there's no one listening. Tonight something felt different. Worse. Like I wasn't just walking home. Like I was being hunted. The fog was thick tonight, clinging to the ground like a secret. I zipped my jacket up to my chin and shoved my hands deep into my pockets. The tips of my fingers already stiff from the cold. My boots made soft crunching sounds over the icy sidewalk. But that wasn't the only noise I heard. Footsteps. Behind me. At first, I tried to convince myself it was just someone else headed home. This isn't a good neighborhood, but it's not a war zone either. People walk here, especially at night. But these footsteps matched mine, step for step. And when I slowed down near the closed bakery, they slowed too. I glanced over my shoulder. 2 men, hoodies pulled low, faces in shadow. Not talking, just walking. Too close. I told myself not to panic. Maybe they were just going the same way. Maybe I was being paranoid. But that survival voice in the back of my brain, the one my mom planted there when I was 12 and started taking the bus alone, was screaming. I picked up my pace, heart thudding against my ribs. The diner was 4 blocks behind me. My apartment was 4 blocks ahead. And these 2 strangers? They were still behind me. I spotted the 7-Eleven sign up ahead, glowing like a cheap lighthouse. Without thinking, I darted inside. It smelled like burnt hot dogs and mop water. I grabbed the nearest thing, a knockoff energy drink, and went to the counter. Hector, the overnight guy, barely looked up. "You good?" he asked, voice low. "Yeah," I lied, "just cold." I stayed there 10 minutes, pretending to text on my cracked phone. But when I peeked out the window, they were still there, waiting, watching. I stood in that store like it was my last safe place on earth. My palms were sweaty, but my fingers were ice cold. I thought about asking Hector to call someone, but who? The cops wouldn't show up for 2 guys standing on a public sidewalk. And besides, they hadn't done anything yet. That's the trick, nothing happens until everything does. Eventually, I had to leave. I couldn't stay in the store all night. I looked down 82nd, the main street home, and saw them still there, leaning on the lamppost, smoking, talking quietly. So I did something stupid. I took the long way. Behind the laundromat, there's an alley that cuts 2 blocks off the walk. I used to use it all the time before the bike got stolen. It's not well lit, but it's usually quiet. I figured if I could just slip through fast enough, I'd shake them. I pulled up my hood and walked quickly, trying not to look back. The buildings loomed over me like silent witnesses, their windows dark. Garbage bins lined one side, the other was a cinder block wall tagged with graffiti. Then I heard it. A laugh. I froze, turned. They were standing at the mouth of the alley, not running, not rushing, just standing. One of them stepped forward. "Hey, sweetheart," he called out, his voice low and oily. "You lost?" I backed up a step. My heartbeat filled my ears. "Where you headed in such a hurry?" I didn't answer. I ran. My boots slipped on a patch of ice as I tore through the alley. I caught myself on a dumpster, the cold metal biting into my palm. My breath came in clouds, fast and shallow. I didn't dare look back. I hit the sidewalk running, cut across a side street past a bus stop bench half buried in frost. I hoped they didn't follow. I hoped they weren't faster. I didn't hear footsteps behind me, but that didn't mean they weren't there. Every dark corner, every parked car felt like a trap. My keys were already in my hand, gripped tight like a weapon. I could see my building ahead. 3 stories of peeling paint and broken buzzers. I reached the front door, fumbled the key. Dropped it, swore. Hands shaking, I got it in the lock, shoved the door open and slammed it shut behind me. Deadbolt clicked, chain latched. My chest heaved. I slid to the floor, my back against the door. Through the peephole, I saw them. Across the street, just standing there, watching. One of them lit a cigarette. The flame flashed across his face. Thin, pale, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. They didn't move for a full minute. Then they turned and walked away like it was just another night, but it wasn't. Not for me. I didn't sleep that night. Marcus was snoring on the couch, stinking of beer and regret. I wanted to shake him, scream at him, do something, be useful, but I didn't. The next morning, I called the diner and asked Keith for day shifts. "They're full," he said. "You're lucky to have hours at all." Lucky. I stared at my bank app. 1842, no pepper spray, no Uber, no safety. That afternoon, I walked to the Dollar Tree and bought the biggest keychain I could find. Something to hold in my hand and swing if I ever needed to. The next night I walked home again. Different jacket, same fear. Every noise made my skin crawl. Every shadow looked like them, but I walked anyway. Because I had to. Because there's no one else paying my bills, watching my back, or holding my hand. People think bravery is some big, dramatic thing. It's not. Sometimes it's just walking home in the dark. Again. And again. And never letting them see you break. How did it come to this? That's what I kept asking myself night after night, flipping stale Whoppers and dodging leering eyes through a grease-streaked drive-through window. I used to think I'd have a future, college, career, something my parents could be proud of. But here I was, 20 years old, pulling graveyard shifts at Burger King off Maplewood Avenue in Trenton. I dropped out of community college 6 months ago. The bills kept stacking up. Textbooks, rent, gas. My parents were furious. My dad stopped speaking to me for a while, and my mom just kept sighing like I was a disappointment she didn't know how to fix. I thought a job, any job, would make things better. But this job, it's just survival. The late shift starts at 10 p.m. and ends at 4 a.m. Most nights it's quiet. A few truckers roll through. Some factory workers grab food after their shift. Then there are the creeps, the ones who stare a little too long, who ask for your number with a grin that makes your skin crawl. And tonight was different. The bus doesn't run past midnight, which means unless someone's willing to drive me home, I walk the 2 miles to my apartment. Last month, my car died in the middle of Broad Street, and I didn't have the cash to fix it. I've been walking ever since. To top it off, my ex, Derek, keeps texting me drunk threats and voicemails that swing between love and hate. He's unhinged, but no one cares unless someone ends up in a hospital. So yeah, I ask myself, how did I end up here? Alone, behind a register, with no backup and no way out. But that night changed everything. It was cold for mid-November, the kind of cold that seeps through your jacket and settles into your bones. The store was dead quiet. Donna, my manager, was in the back office pretending to do inventory, which basically meant she was scrolling through Facebook and drinking lukewarm coffee. At 2:17 a.m., the bell on the drive-thru chimed. I glanced at the monitor. A rusted navy blue Ford Taurus rolled up to the window. The guy inside looked like he hadn't slept in days. Greasy black hair, hollow cheeks, yellow teeth. He was staring at me like I was a bug under glass. I handed him his Whopper combo, trying not to look at him too long. That's when he said it. "You got real pretty hands," he rasped. "Bet they're soft." I gave a nervous laugh, heart beating faster. Thanks. Enjoy your meal." But he didn't drive away. He just sat there, still staring. His eyes were dark, sunken, almost vacant. "Sir?" I asked, forcing my voice to sound casual. He didn't move until the guy behind him honked. Then he smiled, slow and deliberate, and finally pulled off. I tried to shake it off, told myself he was just a weird drunk. But something about the way he looked at me stuck, like he'd already decided something about me. An hour later, he came back. This time he ordered just a coffee. I opened the window, trying to act unfazed. "What's a sweet thing like you doing out so late?" he asked. His breath stank of booze. "You scared being here alone?" "I'm not alone," I lied. "My manager's here." He leaned closer. "Yeah? Where?" I didn't answer. He just smiled again. "I'll see you soon, pretty thing." Then drove off, and I knew he meant it. When I told Donna, she barely looked up from her phone. Probably just drunk. "Don't engage with him. That guy came back twice, said he'd see me again. What if he does?" Donna rolled her eyes. "We get weirdos all the time, Jamie. As long as he's not touching you, we can't do anything." That stuck in my head. As long as he's not touching you. At 3:30 a.m., the bell over the door jingled. I looked up, and there he was. No car. Just standing there in that yellowing overhead light like he belonged. He didn't speak right away, just looked me over. Then he smiled. "You look even prettier up close." I felt my stomach drop. I glanced toward the back, but Donna hadn't come out. The cameras were rolling, but no one ever watched them in real time. He ordered a small fry. I punched it in, hands trembling. When I handed it over, he grabbed my wrist. "Why don't you come take a ride with me? I'll show you a real good time." I tried to yank my hand back, but his grip was like iron. Then finally, Donna walked in. "Sir, you need to leave. Now." He didn't flinch. "Or what?" Donna grabbed the phone. "I'll call the cops." He snarled and lunged. Across the counter. It all happened in seconds. Donna shouted, I screamed. The man shoved the register and lunged at her like he'd done it before. My brain shut down. I grabbed the nearest thing, a fire extinguisher by the fry station. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely lift it, but I was ready to swing. Donna managed to push him back into a booth, knocking over a tray tower. That's when I heard heavy boots. Some trucker who'd been using the bathroom saw the commotion and jumped in. He tackled the guy to the floor and pinned him down with one knee on his back. The sirens came 5 minutes later. Felt like an hour. They cuffed him, dragged him outside. When they searched his car, I saw the officers' faces change. They pulled out 2 hunting knives, a roll of duct tape, and a crumpled notebook. Inside were names, descriptions, times. One of them read, Jamie BK, hands like glass, alone most nights. My whole body went cold. The officer looked at me with pity, like I was just another almost statistic. You were lucky, he said. But it didn't feel like luck. It felt like I'd been marked. I didn't go back the next day. I texted Donna that I quit. She didn't respond. No apology, no check-in, just silence. A week later, I heard the guy made bail. I threw up when I read the article online. Local man charged with assault released on bond pending trial. No picture, no warning. Just out. My rent's due in 5 days. I've got $23 in my checking account. Derek keeps texting me. You need me yet? Every night before bed, I check the locks. I sleep with my shoes on, just in case. People think the scary part is the attack. It's not. The scariest part is what comes after. The silence. The way people move on like it didn't happen. I wish I could say I felt strong, brave, but I just feel tired. I think about that man's eyes, about how he didn't look angry. He looked certain, like he was entitled to me. And I think about how close he got. He never got what he came for, but he came close. Too close. And that's something I'll carry with me forever. You don't forget the way December feels in Barrow. The kind of cold that chews through your clothes, bites your bones. The kind of dark that never lifts. I was 9 the winter it happened, and sometimes I think that's the year everything, inside me, froze too. We'd taken a rare trip down to Fairbanks, 6 hours each way, to pick up my dad's tools from a shipping depot. He was a trucker, gone weeks at a time, and Mom had picked up extra shifts at the clinic just to keep the heat on. She hated long drives in the winter, but the roads were clear enough that day. Elise, my sister, spent most of the trip texting, her boyfriend, and rolling her eyes at me. On the way back, we stopped at the Burger King on the edge of nowhere. It was 4:30 p.m., but already dark enough that the parking lot lights cast long, ghostly shadows. Inside, everything smelled like grease and old fries. I sat by the window while Mom ordered. That's when I saw him, a man in a shredded parka sitting in the far booth. His face was pale and caved in, like it had collapsed under its own weight. His eyes found mine. Didn't blink. Then his mouth stretched into a grin, wider than it should have been, revealing gums as black as tar and teeth like burnt wood. I tugged at Elise's sleeve, trying to whisper, but when she finally looked, the booth was empty. Nothing but a half-eaten Whopper and maggots, crawling through the bun. She laughed, said I was being a freak, but I knew what I saw, and I wish I hadn't. Back home, it was even colder. The furnace had been acting up again, and we had to plug in 2 space heaters just to make the living room bearable. Our windows were rimmed with frost thick enough to scrape, and the inside of my coat was damp from the long ride. My boots were held together with duct tape and hope. They squeaked when I walked, always leaving little trails of melted snow on the floor that Elise yelled at me for. She was supposed to watch me when Mom worked doubles, but she spent most nights on the landline or glued to the old desktop, messaging boys. I had no friends at school. Being quiet, poor, and weird was enough to make me a target, so I kept to myself. Drew monsters in my notebook, things with too many eyes, broken mouths, bent bodies. Pretended they were stronger than I felt. It was 3 p.m. the next day when I saw him again. I was eating cereal in front of the TV when something moved past the window. Not fast, slow, like it wanted to be seen. I looked. There he was, standing in the snow. The same old man from Burger King, paralyzed like a bad dream. His face slack, eyes glassy, smile frozen across his face. His parka hung in tatters, soaked, through with ice. "Elise," I called. She came in annoyed. "What?" "There's someone outside." She glanced, then scoffed. "That's just Mr. Haskins, probably checking the pipes again." "Don't be such a baby." But I knew Mr. Haskins, and that wasn't him. That wasn't anyone. Mom called later that night to say she had to stay for a second shift. Some guy slipped on ice and broke his hip. Elise groaned and ordered me to take out the trash before it got too late. I argued, but she shut the door behind me anyway. Outside, the cold was different. Harsher. It wasn't just temperature, it hurt to breathe. The sky was pitch, the snow untouched since morning. I dragged the bag to the bin near the edge of our yard under the weak motion light that flickered like it was scared too. That's when I heard them. Footsteps. Sloppy, wet sounding, like someone walking barefoot in slush. I turned, and he was there, the man from the booth, but he wasn't alone. 2 women stood beside him, naked. Their skin was sagging and gray, stretched over sharp bones, hair thin and wet, hanging like kelp, and their mouths, God, stretched impossibly wide, the same smile, that impossible smile. One of them raised her hand, fingers long and cracked. She motioned for me, a slow curl. "Come here." I dropped the bag. I ran. I slammed the door so hard it shook, the walls. Elise yelled from the hallway, but I couldn't speak. My lungs burned, my heart thudded against my ribs like it wanted out. "Elise," I gasped. "They're back. The old man. He's outside. And 2 women. They were..." "Liam, what the hell are you talking about?" she snapped, but then, thud, the window. Something hit it, hard. We turned to look. A long crack had formed across the glass, running like a vein. Elise went pale. She grabbed the phone and dialed 911. Her hands were shaking so bad she almost dropped it. "Someone's outside our house. Something hit our window. They said a car was on the way, but the roads were frozen over and a blizzard was kicking in. It would take time." I stood in the hallway, holding the fireplace poker like it would actually protect me. Elise locked every door, shoved a chair under the knob. The figures didn't try again, but they didn't leave either. I felt them, watching. When the cops finally arrived, the storm was in full swing. They came in covered in frost, boots clomping, through our front entry like they owned the place. They found no footprints, no broken glass. Nothing but a single torn strip of flannel on the ground, frozen stiff, soaked in something dark, and stuck to the cracked window. A Burger King napkin, frozen in place, smeared with saliva and something yellow. The officers shared a look. Probably just kids pulling a prank. Don't worry, folks. But I wasn't fooled. No kid smiled like that. After that night, I stopped sleeping with the lights off. Elise never talked about it again. She left at 18, moved south, never looked back. Mom chalked it up to nightmares and stress. Said I needed to stop drawing monsters, but they never really left. Even now, as a grown man, I wake up sweating, convinced. I hear whispers by the window. I can't walk into a Burger King without checking every booth, and in the long winter nights when the dark hangs heavy, I still see them sometimes, just standing there, smiling. Working the closing shift at the Airport Way Burger King in Fairbanks wasn't glamorous, but it paid just enough to keep gas in my beater Subaru and snacks in my backpack. October 2019 was colder than usual, the kind of cold that knifed through your work pants and settled deep in your spine. I'd stand under the fryer vent on breaks just to feel alive again. The place attracted all kinds. Drifters who smelled like gasoline, truckers trying to stay awake, students too broke for Taco Bell. But none of them stood out like Tyler Graves. Every Thursday, 1:45 a.m. sharp, black Dodge Charger growling at the window. He always ordered the same thing: Bacon King with extra mayo, large onion rings, and 4 Hershey pies. The weird part? He never took the pies. Every time we'd find them smashed in the parking lot, still in their boxes, run over or stomped flat. Tyler always paid, in damp, greasy bills. They reeked of motor oil and something older, something that lingered in your nostrils long after the window slid shut. One night I was wiping down the window and caught him staring, not at me, through me. Then he leaned out and said, soft and slow like a dare, "You're too smart for this grease trap. Want to see something real?" I laughed, said I had to mop the floors. He laughed too, but it didn't feel friendly. The next Thursday, he left me a Burger King receipt folded into an origami swan. On the back, written in Sharpie, "Midnight, East Side Bridge, don't flake." And for some reason, I didn't. The first few nights out with Tyler felt like biting into something spicy. You weren't sure if it was dangerous or just addictive. Tipping our principal's house was childish, but I'd never laughed that hard in months. Fireworks in the dumpster behind BK. Stupid. Hilarious. The rush made my skin hum. Tyler was magnetic, like he carried a weather system around him. Hot, cold, unpredictable. He'd talk big about escaping Fairbanks, how this town was a frozen purgatory for the invisible. I didn't know what that meant, but it sounded true. He showed me his lockpick set one night, real polished stuff. Said he stole it from his uncle. Then came the Polaroids. They started simple, stray cats, dumpsters, rooftops. Then they got darker. One showed a rabbit clearly alive. The next, gutted, with something written in Sharpie on the fur. "Truth is ugly." I asked him about it once. He just smiled and changed the subject. He kept a notebook, filled with BK receipts and strange doodles, figures with huge teeth and no eyes, Symbols that looked like crosses but twisted wrong. Some pages had employee names, including mine. You. Always work the fryer on Tuesdays, he said once. You're precise. I didn't like how he said that. I didn't like how he looked at people either, like they were meat. But I kept hanging out, because I didn't have much else. Because he made life feel like it wasn't happening in slow motion. Then came the party invite. Midnight game, he said. Bring a lighter, and trust. I should have said no. The party was at an old meatpacking plant off Badger Road. Rusted, out, long condemned, and way off grid. You could smell it before you saw it, rot masked by bleach like death trying to wear cologne. Tyler had strung up floodlights and dragged in busted mannequins from who knows where. He called it the range. Most had knife marks in their torsos. One had its eyes replaced with Hershey pie wrappers. I wanted to leave. Then Vince showed up, Tyler's cousin, twitchy and mean, and behind him came Mira. Mira, the woman who'd warm her hands by our BK vent every other night. The one who once told me I had a kind heart. Now she had zip ties on her wrists. What the hell is this? I said. Tyler grinned. Moving targets, Morgan. He tossed me a hunting knife. Let's see what you've got. I didn't move. I couldn't. Vince pulled out his phone, started recording. Cole, another hanger-on, egged him on. Everything in my body screamed. I looked at Mira, bloodshot eyes, cracked lips, shaking like the wind had gutted her. I reached for my pocket. All I had was a plastic knife from my dinner break. I moved fast, muttering apologies as I sawed through the zip. Ties. Then I grabbed her hand. We ran. We found an emergency exit, barely hanging on its hinges, and bolted through it. The wind outside burned my lungs raw, but the weird part was, the alley behind the plant didn't look like an alley. It looked like the back of Burger King, same dumpster, same grease trail, same flickering kitchen light. I didn't ask questions. Mira stumbled and I practically dragged her through the back door. It opened straight into the BK kitchen, like we'd looped through some invisible tear in the town. Everything was quiet. The fryer off, the place still. We hid in the walk-in freezer, locked the door from the inside. Outside, through the condensation, I saw them. Tyler, Vince, Cole. Standing in the kitchen, Vince lifted his phone, recorded us. Then Tyler stepped forward, pressed his palm flat to the freezer window, smiled. Mira squeezed my hand, whispered, "Thank you." I didn't say anything. I was too busy trying not to cry. The cops came an hour later. I had to call them twice. Mira was too cold to speak. They found the meatpacking plant. Inside, 42 used needles, a knife embedded in a mannequin. Tyler's notebook, pages full of BK employee schedules, mine circled in red. One page had a photo of me, working. The fry station taped to a dartboard. Tyler called it role play, said it was a joke, performance art. Vince got a slap on the wrist. 8 months. Tyler got 4 years. 4. Mira vanished 2 days later. No ID, no family, just disappeared like she'd never existed. I quit the job, burned the uniform. Still, flinch at the sound of Dodge engines. Still can't look at a Hershey pie. Sometimes I think I see her. Mira, in the drive-thru. Frost on her lips, eyes glassy, mouthing 2 words I'll never forget. Bless you. I keep Tyler's last receipt, folded into my senior yearbook. The ink's all bled out. Looks like blood now, but I keep it just to remember what's real. Boone, North Carolina isn't much on a map. College town, pretty foliage, and a main drag that smells like old beer and burnt coffee. But for me, fall 2018 was survival mode. Senior year at App State, scraping by on a sociology major, and the 8:50 hour I made working the night shift at the Burger King on King Street. Most kids came in for drunk food after tailgates or to hide from the rain with paper crowns on their heads. Then there were the townies. Not bad folks mostly, but there were exceptions. One stood out, Clay Briggs. They called him the Crusher, though I never figured out why. He was in his mid-20s, built like a fridge, always in the same stained jeans and work boots. Every Thursday to Sunday around 2 a.m., he'd storm into our BK like he owned it. His signature move was chaos, pouring milkshakes on laptops, tearing up napkin dispensers, and leaving threats smeared in ketchup on bathroom mirrors. "You lookin' to die?" in all caps once. Real poet. His order was always the same: 2 spicy chickens, large fries, no salt, and a high C orange with exactly 3 ice cubes. If you gave him 4, he'd throw the drink at the wall. Ask me how I know. Nobody ever did anything about it. Cops never caught him, and the manager, Dale, told us to just ride it out. Said students came and went, but Clay was permanent. But when Clay put a freshman in the hospital for staring too hard, I'd had enough. Me and the night crew, Danny, Coop, and Jesus, knew something had to change. The plan we came up with? Dumb, desperate, kind of beautiful. It started with a Coke bottle and a whole lot of old receipt paper. We called it Operation Flame Grilled Justice. Coop came up with the name. He was the grill guy, loved his job more than most love their pets. We each contributed something to the plan. I built the armor. Layers of old uniforms stitched together and padded with drive-through order pads. The carbon copy kind, thick like cardboard and nearly impossible to rip. I wore it under my uniform like a medieval knight disguised as a fast food. Lackey Jesus, our dish pit wizard, prepped the weapon. A glass Coca-Cola bottle filled with frozen high C orange. Not just frozen, solid. He left it in the walk-in for 2 days. It looked innocent enough sitting on the counter, but it would hit like a brick if it came down to it. And Danny? She handled surveillance. Hooked up her old GoPro to the back room, monitored and angled it toward the front doors. Not for cops, no one trusted them to show up in time, but for proof. Just in case this turned into something worse than a broken jaw, I volunteered to be the bait. Friday night closing shift, just me on the floor. I cleaned slower than usual, dragging the mop across the greasy tiles, every nerve wired and humming. The whole place was quiet, the way fast food joints get after the bars close and the college kids crash. The plan was simple. Let him come in, mouth off, act out, and when the moment came, make it count. Danny and Jesus waited out back. Coop stayed inside but out of sight, pretending to fix the soda machine. I remember checking the clock. 2:03 a.m. Right on time. The door slammed open. Clay was here. Clay stormed in like he was expecting the world to bow. With him were 2 other guys, both in camo jackets, both buzzed out of their skulls. One had a hunting knife on his belt. The other smelled like he'd bathed in gasoline and rage. He looked me over, snorted, and said, "College pussy better know their place." Then, he reached out and grabbed my thigh through my polyester uniform pants. I didn't flinch. I didn't even blink. I grabbed the frozen high C bottle off the counter and smashed it against the register. It cracked in half, jagged glass glinting in the flickering fluorescent light. I pressed the broken edge to Clay's neck, hard enough, to let him know I wasn't bluffing. "This Burger King," I said, "is a goddamn democracy." For a second, time froze. His friends stopped laughing. I could hear Coop shifting behind the counter, ready to jump in. Clay stared at me, face twisted between confusion and fury. Then he lunged. I dodged and shoved him backward with my armored shoulder. The order pads absorbed the impact, and I felt almost nothing. He went down hard, knocking a table clean over. I ran out the back, leading him toward the dumpsters. The alley behind the BK was dark and slick with fryer oil runoff. Clay followed, fists swinging. His camo guys stumbled after. This wasn't just a fight. This was war, and I wasn't done yet. The alley stank of sour grease and cigarette ash. I pivoted on my heel and caught Clay in the ribs with a steel fry basket, one of the good ones, straight from the dish pit. He let out a bark of pain and staggered back. One of the camo guys lunged at me, slipped on fryer sludge, and took a faceful of sauce runoff from a busted mayo packet. Then came the other one. He managed to land a punch, but it bounced harmlessly off the receipt armor. I grinned, high on adrenaline, and gave him a solid knee to the stomach. And just when I thought it was about to turn ugly for real, like hospital ugly, I heard it. Click, clack. That sound every American kid recognizes, a shotgun racking. A man stepped into the glow of the overhead light, older, maybe 50, wearing a crisp Burger King manager's shirt tucked into faded jeans. His name tag read Hank, but the stitching was old, the font wrong, like it hadn't been made this century. He looked at all of us, calm, patient. "Y'all are scaring off my customers," he said. The alley was empty except for us. Clay froze, face drained of color. "Shit," he whispered. "You work here now?" Hank didn't answer, just adjusted his grip on the shotgun and took a step closer. Clay turned, bolted. His friends scrambled after him like mice fleeing fire. Hank looked at me, nodded once. Then he was gone. I sat behind the Burger King that night, hands shaking, breath fogging the cold Appalachian air. Coop came out first, followed by Danny and Jesus. No one spoke for a while. When we finally checked the alley, there was no sign of Hank, no boot prints, no shotgun shells, nothing, except for 3 Burger King crowns, perfectly folded, resting in a neat row beside the dumpster. Inside, the high C bottle, the one I shattered, was sitting on the counter again, reassembled. No cracks, still cold. And when Danny checked the employee handbook the next day, she found a new line at the bottom of the emergency procedures page. No exorcisms during peak hours. We laughed, but it wasn't a funny laugh. Clay never came back. Rumors said he took a job at a McDonald's 3 states over. I doubted he ever touched another spicy chicken. Now when I train new hires, I tell them about the grease traps, the soda mix ratios, and what to do when drunk students throw up in the lobby. But I also tell them, dead serious, if Hank shows up, make him a Whopper, no questions. And I still keep one of those crowns in my glove box. Not for luck, for respect. Because some shifts, the night shift doesn't just serve burgers, we serve warnings. Working the overnight shift at the Burger King off I-80 wasn't exactly how I pictured life at 28. But here I was in rural Nebraska, flipping patties and dodging burnout. The hum of the fluorescent lights never stopped, like they were wired into my skull. And the broiler 5000 wheezed like a dying animal every time it cooked another Whopper. We didn't get many customers between 1 and 4 a.m. Truckers, a few lost tourists, and the occasional teenager with bloodshot eyes and too much time. The crew was thin, usually just me, my manager Rick, and whoever they stuck on grill duty. That's how I met Chris. He came in late one Thursday, pale, lanky guy with greasy hair, wearing the black Burger King polo like it was a uniform for something. Far worse, said maybe 5 words during his first shift. They put him on the grill and I was assigned to train him. I showed him how to slap frozen patties onto the conveyor, how to clean the grease trap, barely, and how to prep sandwich builds. He nodded but didn't say much. Every break, he'd go out to the parking lot, light a cigarette, and stare out at the highway like it owed him money. His order never changed. Double Whopper, no veggies, extra mayo, large Coke, no ice. 2 apple pies, untouched. He'd peel back the foil, stare into the filling like it was some kind of omen, and then toss them. Every single time. We all just figured he was another night shift casualty. The kind who slipped through life's cracks and landed behind a fryer in the middle of nowhere. I'd seen it before. I didn't know then that Chris wasn't broken. He was planning something. The thing about working nights is your sense of normal starts to warp. You laugh at stuff that would make you flinch in daylight. Black humor becomes survival. So when Chris made his first joke, I didn't think much of it. We were scrubbing the broiler 5000 around 3 a.m., elbow deep in congealed grease. He looked over and said, "You think this thing could dissolve a body?" I laughed, a weird, dry laugh. Only if they've been marinated in regret. Chris didn't smile, just nodded, serious. From there, the jokes came more often. Always dark, always delivered flat. I bet the freezer could hold a couple bodies, just gotta stack 'em right. If you really wanted to poison someone, you'd do it through the mayo. No one checks the mayo. Again, I laughed, because that's what you do, right? You pretend it's all in fun. But each time, the laughter felt thinner. Then came the weird habits. He'd trace the small bullet hole in the drive-through window with his finger like it meant something. Rick told us it was from an armed robbery back in '09, but Chris stared at it like it whispered to him. One night I caught him humming pumped-up kicks while cleaning the soda machine. Real slow, real soft. Still, I didn't say anything. Nobody did. We all knew people cracked a little on the night shift. The silence, the boredom, the shadows behind every corner. I told myself he was just weird, not dangerous. But then, one night while I was at the fry station, he leaned in close and whispered, "If they ever fire me, I'd make sure this place gets on the news." That was when my stomach turned cold. Didn't tell Rick right away. I told myself maybe Chris was bluffing, blowing off steam, but something about the way he said it, calm, like he'd already pictured it, stuck with me. Later that night, I stepped into the walk-in freezer to restock pies and just froze. I pulled out my phone and called Mia, my wife. Her voice came, through groggy and concerned. "What's wrong?" she asked. I told her everything. Chris's jokes, the bullet hole tracing, the threat. There was no hesitation. "Tell your manager. Now." Rick was in the back office, feet up on a crate of burger buns. Ex-Marine, usually didn't scare easy. He gave me that tired, seen-it-all look as I talked. But when I mentioned the bullet hole and what Chris said about the news, Rick sat up. "You're sure that's what he said?" Word for word. He rubbed his temples and muttered something about "not again." Then he asked me to write a report. Official-like. I could tell he was trying to stay calm, but his fingers trembled when he reached for the phone. Chris didn't show up the next night. I asked Rick if he was fired. Rick didn't answer, just told me to stay alert, double-check all exits, and keep my phone on me at all times. That was when the paranoia kicked in. Every time a car idled in the lot too long, I stared until it drove off. Every shadow behind the dumpster felt heavier. I started watching the door like it might burst open at any second, and deep down, I hoped I was overreacting. I wasn't. It happened 3 days later. Cops showed up just before dawn, cruiser lights painting the frosted windows red and blue. One of them walked in holding a folded piece of paper. The other followed Rick to the back. No one said a word. They searched for Chris's locker. I never looked inside myself. I figured he kept cigarettes, maybe a flask. But what they found made the blood drain from my face. A map of the Burger King, hand-drawn and labeled with all the exits, fire escape routes, blind spots in the cameras, then a list of employees' names. Mine had a check mark next to it. So did Rick's. So did Angie, the morning shift opener who had just come back from maternity leave, and a receipt. A real one, torn from a register. For 200 rounds of 9mm ammo, purchased 3 days earlier. They didn't say much about the arrest. Said Chris had been picked up off a rural road outside town. Gun was in the car. He'd written a letter, what they call a manifesto. But the part that still haunts me? One of the officers told me before they left. When we cuffed him, he asked if Jordan said anything else about him. I didn't respond, just nodded, lips dry, heart pounding. Rick took a week off after that. I gave my 2 weeks' notice the same day. I wasn't going to die behind a fryer. I never saw Chris again, but sometimes I think I do. A black sedan in my rearview mirror that follows too long. A guy with the same walk, standing outside a gas station, in the dark. I quit Burger King, took a warehouse job on the edge of Lincoln. Pays less, but I sleep better mostly. Every so often I drive past that old BK off I-80. The sign's still flickering. I still check the parking lot for black cars with no plates. Old habits. The footage from the night Chris made that threat, accidentally erased, according to Rick, probably for the best. Mia says I did the right thing, that I probably saved lives, but I still wonder if Chris remembers. If he's sitting somewhere in a cell thinking about the guy who reported him, and I remember the last thing he ever said to me. Not goodbye, not take care, just see you later. And somehow, that still chills me more than anything, because he said it like a promise. Back in 2015, I had a degree in philosophy from UC Santa Cruz, a mountain of student debt, and no clue what I was doing with my life. I landed at a 24-hour Burger King off Highway 99 in Bakersfield, California, where the sun never fully sets. It just simmers down to a dull orange burn. Nights there felt like limbo. Too late for the living, too early for the dead. My job? Midnight to 8 a.m., 5 nights a week. Fryer, register, grill, whatever Linda, our manager, needed. The place was a magnet for stoned college kids, tweakers, and truckers running on 3 days of no-DAWs. I kept my head down and my apron clean mostly. Jason showed up during one of those shifts, just walked in like he'd always been part of the crew. Tall, wiry guy with a faded Misfits tattoo crawling up his neck. First thing he said to me was, "You ever just want to deep fry your diploma?" I laughed harder than I should have. He picked things up fast, cracked dumb jokes while cleaning the grill, and always slipped me extra nuggets during break. Said it was the least he could do for a bro with a brain. We shared shift meals at 3 a.m. and he always ordered the same thing. Whopper Jr. No tomato, extra pickles. Large Dr. Pepper with exactly 7 ice cubes and 1 single onion ring. He never ate it, just moved it around his tray like he was solving a puzzle. For a while I figured I'd gotten lucky. Night shifts are lonely and Jason made them feel less like punishment. But weird people don't stay weird in the open. They drift into the shadows, and Jason was already halfway there. Jason had a friend, Tyler. I never saw him inside the store, only outside during Jason's extended smoke breaks. Tyler was the kind of guy who made you instinctively check your wallet after he left. Always wore a black hoodie, even when it was 98 degrees at midnight. I once asked Jason why Tyler never came in. He just shrugged. Guy's got anxiety, man. Doesn't trust corporate spaces. I didn't press. That summer was a blur of grease burns, busted ice machines, and drive-through orders yelled through static. But in between it all, little things started adding up. The register came up short 3 nights in a row. $20 here, $15 there. Linda thought it was a system error at first. I wanted to believe that too. Then there was the switchblade. I found it shoved behind the ketchup packets while restocking the condiment station. Handle worn, blade sharp. I showed it to Jason, half joking. He grinned. That just for protection. This neighborhood's sketchy, man. He tucked it into his back pocket like it was no big deal. That's when the vibe changed. Jason still laughed, still cracked jokes, but it all felt off, like he was playing a part he was getting bored of. He started showing up late, looking wired, twitchy. And the breaks with Tyler got longer, sometimes 30, 40 minutes. I told myself I was being paranoid. Bakersfield wasn't exactly known for its saints, but I couldn't shake the feeling I was standing next to someone who treated this job like a cover. And I started watching him more closely. Not because I didn't trust him, but because I finally realized he didn't trust anyone. It happened on a Thursday. I was mopping near the front counter, trying to ignore the sticky sound my shoes made every time I took a step. Jason was on drive-through. Tyler was pacing outside again, hoodie up despite the 90-degree night. Linda came in mid-shift. She never did that, said she had to check numbers. 10 minutes later, I heard shouting from the back office, Jason's voice. Then a thud. He came out holding his hat, his name tag barely hanging on. She caught me skimming, he said like he was talking about spilling a soda. Guess it's time to move on. I stood there like an idiot, mop dripping in one hand. Later, Dylan, he said, don't forget, philosophy majors always overthink shit. Then he winked, walked out the front doors, and disappeared into the night. Linda didn't say much, just told me to double-check the register and lock the safe at the end of the shift. I nodded, still hearing his voice in my head. The next few weeks felt hollow. The fryer still hissed, the broiler 5000 still wheezed like it had asthma, and drunk college kids still asked if we could make them a burger that tastes like regret. But it wasn't the same. The tension that hung in the air when Jason was around was gone, but so was the weird comfort. I figured that was it. Just another burnout who slipped through fast food and out the other side, until I saw his face on the news. It was a slow Tuesday. I was eating leftover chicken fries on my couch, scrolling my phone with grease-stained fingers when I saw the headline, Armed robbery at 7-Eleven. Former fast food employee among suspects. I clicked it so fast I nearly dropped my phone. There, he was, Jason. Same tattoos, same half smile, only this time it looked smug, like he was daring the world to be shocked. The article said he and an accomplice, Tyler of course, stormed a 7-Eleven at gunpoint. Pistol whipped the clerk, took $87 in a case of Bud Light. That was it. All that edge, all that buildup for beer and cash barely enough to fill a tank. I just stared. You think you know people. You think the guy who sneaks you extra nuggets and hums punk songs at 4 a.m. is just harmless, maybe broken but not dangerous. And then you see their mugshot on the evening news looking like they're proud to be caught. Linda texted me later that night. Told you he was trouble. All I replied was, yeah, but I didn't sleep well. I kept hearing his voice in my head, that smirk in his words. Don't forget, philosophy majors always overthink shit, and now I couldn't help it. I overthought everything, especially how close I'd been to ending up in the wrong place, at the wrong time with the wrong guy. 5 years passed. I moved to Fresno, got a warehouse job, better hours, decent benefits. Philosophy degree still sat in a frame on my bookshelf like a joke I forgot the punchline to. Then, one night at Walmart, I saw him. Jason. He was thinner, beard patchy, tattoos faded into dull scars. He was pushing a cart full of canned chili and energy drinks when he looked up and saw me, that same grin. Yo, BK buddy, he called out like we were just old coworkers. We should grab a beer sometime. I laughed, awkward, shaky. Busy these days, man. He nodded like he understood, like we shared a secret. 2 months later, I saw his face again, this time on the local news. Repeat offender arrested in home invasion. Apparently, he and Tyler broke into a house in the middle of the night. Got caught when the homeowner's dog wouldn't stop barking. That was it. I sat on my couch, phone glowing in my hands, and wondered how many more times I'd see that grin before he finally disappeared for good. Now, every time I pass a Burger King, I check the locks at red lights. I wonder if Jason ever liked those Whopper Juniors, or if it was just a script. And I think about how close I came to being more than just his coworker, maybe even an alibi. The last thing he ever said to me still lingers. Life's a joke, man. Just don't be the punchline. I didn't get it then. Now I do.